Hi, everyone. Welcome to our special series for our summer kickoff. We're excited that you're here. We're going to wait about 1 minute for people to connect and all join us. We've got quite a few people registered, so they'll stroll in. But before we get going, I'll just do a little intro about myself, a little bit of housekeeping. Maybe this is new for you to use GoToWebinar. I'm not too sure. It's worked out really well for us over the last year. We've been using it since COVID, and it's been an incredible way to share our messages and our programs with so many people around the province and right across the country and around the world. We've had people join us from all corners of the world, which is super exciting for us to share that message. I'm Sandra Riches, and I'm the Executive Director for the BC AdventureSmart program. I'm really grateful to be joining you tonight from the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people. I'm also really grateful for our special guests tonight. This is new for us to have a kind of a table here and invite people in to share their perspectives, but you'll gain so much from them tonight and get some other insights that will give you some more perspective on your outdoor recreation, your preparedness, and what you can do to help the search and rescue volunteers in your region of the province or wherever you're listening from. Maybe you're across the country. We'd love to know. You can always pop that into the question and use the question field. So obviously you're on mute and your cameras are off, but you can see us. And as we get going, you'll have a chance definitely to ask some questions of our special guest, of me. But really it's about Christine, Jarrett, and BJ tonight, our special guests. So without further ado, I'll do some introductions and we'll get rolling. By the way, the AdventureSmart program's been around for 17 years. It is a program underneath the BC Search and Rescue Association, and it's been a very busy 17 years of outdoor education through trailhead outreach, online now, traditional media, social media, so lots of engagement. But the whole focus of what we do is to increase your awareness so that we can help reduce the number and severity of search and rescue calls in the province of BC. We have about 1,700 calls every year in BC for search and rescue. Last year, there were over 2,000. And we're an active, healthy province. There's no question about it. And we have easy access to incredible terrain. At times, that easy access, for some who are unaware, it can get a false sense of security. And we don't want you to be fooled by that false sense of security. So you're going to gain some different perspectives from our special guests tonight. I'd like to introduce Christine. Christine would spend every waking moment hiking, trail running, paddleboarding, or rock climbing if she could, ever since her first real hike to Machu Picchu in 2006. Christine has been obsessed with hiking. Most of all, that's been her priority for outdoor recreation. As an environment conservationist by profession, she's always looking for new ways to help others develop and connect with the wondrous outdoors. She manages a Vancouver-based wildlife education nonprofit called Northwest Wildlife Preservation Society by day, and in her free time, she shows her love for the great outdoors through her passion project, Hikes Near Vancouver. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Christine, and she's here to share her perspectives on being an advocate for outdoor safety. She shares incredible information on social media, and she always includes and inserts safety messaging and resources and where people can learn more. So welcome, Christine.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. Hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me or know me as Hikes Near Vancouver, I'm a real person too. My name's Christine Kronitsky, as Sandra introduced. Contrary to popular belief, I don't actually hike as a full-time job as much as I wish I could. I do work full-time managing a wildlife conservation charity, and that's sort of feeds into why I started this project, Hikes Near Vancouver, because one of my biggest passions is environment conservation, and something that we promote at my charity and I promote just as an individual because I care about it so much, is like the connection, really, how conservation of wild spaces takes place. And to me, I think that happens when we have access to something and we know about it, we start to feel personally connected to it, and naturally we want to protect the things that we love. So that's sort of how this all got started. I'm just obsessed with hiking, really, and so that's I just naturally wanted to start sharing about my activities, and some friends that I make it public because maybe some people would be interested in hearing what I had to say. Vancouver being a super outdoorsy, active city, I didn't really think there was a need for my account, but we have so many great resources like Vancouver Trails and Outdoor Vancouver, and so many different amazing websites where people can learn about trails. So I wasn't really sure if there was going to be a need for something like my account, but I was really surprised that it grew so quickly. I had thousands of followers within a couple weeks. I think it was pretty nuts. And over the couple years that I've been doing this now, I've started to realize that it's not necessarily the information about the hikes per se, the stats and things like that I share. It's more about the personal experiences, the fact that I'm not an expert anything like the people that you're going to hear from after me who are like supreme experts in their field. I'm just a regular person who just loves to hang out outdoors, and I think that my stories resonate with a lot of people like you who joined here today, and so when I share experiences about the things that I've been doing, people sort of get it, right? They're going through the same thing. And so I feel like that's created this incredible opportunity for me to engage with people and have that influence. I used to think that being an influencer was such a like tacky, yucky word that I hated being associated with. But then when I start really thinking about it, when I have these interests in sharing important topics like environment conservation and safety, it's just such a great opportunity to influence the way that people think about situations. And when it comes to things like hiking, safety is so important, and it's something that a lot of people don't really like to think about. I don't know if it's like the negative aspect, or they don't like thinking about worst case scenarios, or they just think it won't happen to them, or whatever the situation. I've created this really great opportunity where people are following me for looking at my pretty pictures and finding out all the like fun adventures that I'm getting up to. But while I have their attention, I get to share with them information that's really important, like how to stay safe while doing these really fun activities. So that's really about me, and sort of feeds into what this presentation for me is about. It's about why I think sharing experiences is really, really important. So if there's one message that I could ask you all to take away from my presentation today, it's that we all have the ability to impact others around us. And social media is one of those really great tools that can be detrimental to people's safety, but it can also really help. So there's, a lot of chatter that goes on about, social media having a bad rap, especially when it comes to things like hiking, people posting photos of these gorgeous places without the important information that goes along with it, like all the different ways that you need to be prepared and, things like that. So I think that it's up to all of us. We have an obligation, but we also have an opportunity to shift that perception of what social media in relation to hiking is. And instead of being this negative thing where people associate, posting a picture of, Joffrey Lakes or Watersprite Lake and talking about all the dangers that brings, instead we can change that through our own activities and our own awareness of how social media works and influencing works to shift that perception so that people more respect and understand and appreciate the value that social media can bring. I have something like 15,000 people that see my stories and my posts. Like that's like, to me, that blows my mind. 15,000 people, like, of course, not everybody looks at that, but if I have the ability to, tell somebody who wouldn't necessarily have brought the essentials with them on a hike, but they're looking up how to get to Joffrey Lakes or something. And then in my post about Joffrey Lakes, I can say, before you go, make sure you bring the essentials with you. These are the things, help prevent, potential mishap or whatever the case is. If somebody reads that and changes their behavior, like, it's created a difference. It's made a really significant impact. And so the thing about me that resonates a lot is that I'm not really that shy, I don't think. I'm not someone who, of course, every once in a while I'll just post a pretty picture and I'm like, hey, here I am in this gorgeous spot. But a lot of the time I post, about the mistakes that I make as a hiker, as a human. Like, to make mistakes is totally human, and you don't have to be a beginner to make mistakes. You can be a super experienced hiker. You can be an expert in whatever sport it is that you're doing, and you can still make mistakes. And those specifically are the things that people connect with most. So not only is that what I focus on, but it's a message that I sort of am asking you as viewers, as people who are going out there and hiking, especially the beginner hikers who are going to be making the most mistakes, but advanced hikers as well, who we do all make mistakes, and some people don't like to admit them for whatever reason. But I implore you to share information about the mistakes that you're making, because that's how other people will learn. And those are the stories that really resonate with people, that will make them take note of what you're saying, and potentially adapt their behavior. And you have the opportunity with your social media, when you share these stories, that the people watching them, your friends and family, are those people who trust you, who like you, who respect your opinions. And so when you share experiences, like things like, oh, you forgot to bring your headlamp on that hike, and sunset hit and suddenly it was dark, and however the situation is that you got out of it, if you share that message, then the potential for that friend of yours who looks and is going on a hike tomorrow is like, oh, better make sure that my headlamp is charged or whatever, so that doesn't happen. So social media has such an enormous possibility of helping so many people. So I think that it's something that we all really need to pay attention to in the way that we use it ourselves, and the way that we read it. So some experiences that I want to talk about where I've made mistakes are, a good example that I like to talk about is Watersprite Lake. So a couple summers ago, I hiked to Watersprite Lake, like a lot of people do. It's a super popular hike in Squamish. I'm sure you've all heard about it. I've hiked there a bunch of times, but this particular time was my very first time, and it was summer, and I think it was like July or August or something. It was insane, like 33 degrees or something insane. And I hiked up there to camp for the night, and like most advanced hikers, we get there and you're like, oh, let's scramble up to this other little thing that's farther away from what the destination of the hike is. And so we all set our bags down and we're like, let's just go scramble up there and check out what the lake looks like from above. And it was really stupid, and it was the first and last time I'll ever do this. But I had my the super lightweight like Birkenstocks that I carry with me for around the campsite, because nobody wants to wear hiking boots around all the time. I was just wearing those. I had all my stuff left in my tent, didn't bring anything with me except for my phone. I was like, it's 30 minutes, like just up above, up this like shaly slope that was pretty steep. It looks pretty close, but it was actually quite far. It was really stupid. And I slipped a million times. Obviously, I'm wearing sandals on a shale slope. I cut my toe open. Luckily, I'm a responsible hiker. I had a first aid kit back in my tent, so I, bandaged myself back up. But it's a mistake that happens all the time. I see it all the time with my friends, even now, like, every single time pretty much we hike and we go somewhere and we're near the summit, everyone's like, let's drop our packs and, bag this peak and then we'll come back. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I did that. I do that. I used to do that. And so now I share this story with people all the time because even my, advanced hiker friends think like, oh, it's not a big deal. And I'm like, yes, it is. Like, what happens? Like, what happens if, like it's the end of the day, you're typically the most tired, you're, not thinking straight, you're usually like hungry, like there's just, when you're scrambling, there's inherent risk with that over just a straightforward trail. So basically there's a million reasons why you don't do that. But the point is that so many people, beginner or advanced, think that your skill level sort of sets you apart from, not needing to be extra cautious, which is totally wrong. And so instead of me being like, oh, I'm embarrassed, this thing happened to me, I have this public profile, like I find it really important for me to share these stories. And I hope that you do too. So that's really my main point with that. We all make mistakes. I every single year get super sunburnt. I don't know if you can tell, but like last weekend or 2 weekends ago, I went out in the snow hiking, and obviously the snow is super reflective, and I got really badly burnt. And it's not the first time that's happened, even though sun protection's, on the list of essentials. Like I never put enough on, and I just got super duper burnt. And sun protection is something that's, a really, really important thing that people overlook really easily. So basically, I just want you to be able to see my pictures and other people's pictures on Instagram and other social media channels, seeing the videos, understanding all the things that are behind those photos, like I wish that the caption limit was, unlimited, and we could just put all the information that I possibly could that anyone would need to know, but it's just not possible. I mean, technically it's not possible. The captions are actually limited, but like on the left there, I'm scrambling up in the Downton Creek area in Pemberton, and on the right there, I'm hiking up Ronane in Pemberton as well. Apparently, it's my favorite area. But like that picture on the right, Ronane, like what you don't see there is like I can't fit all of that in the caption. Like I can't tell you that you have, like, I have avalanche gear with me. I've taken an avalanche safety course. I have a ice axe in my backpack. I am wearing snowshoes that you can't see. I've been hiking for 20 years. I am with someone who also has the gear and who's responsible. I've left a trip plan with my friend. Like all these things that like you can't see in that photo, and I just don't have the space to tell you about. So every once in a while, even though I consider myself a pretty responsible social media poster, I can't put all of the pertinent information into every single post that you need to know. So you as a social media viewer, you can't look at a photo and say, well, she went there, so I'm going to go there. Like it doesn't work like that. Like there's obviously so much more behind, there's so much more to the story behind each photograph. That really at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to know and to understand that social media can be an amazing resource, but it's one of very, very, very many resources. I use social media too. I check snow levels, I check information, but I also consult lots of other sources to make sure that I know exactly what's going on. I make sure that I'm capable of doing this, that I can mitigate whatever risks I possibly can. So there's so much information behind the stories like that. So really that's the most that I want to tell you. Just basically do your research and understand that social media can be amazing. And so let's all contribute to that by being better with our own social media. But just understanding that there's much more than what you see on the surface. That's it.
Thank you, Christine. That was awesome. I was making notes, even though, I check your posts out all the time too, personally and work-wise, and we've shared a few. So we're really grateful that you've been able to support us that way. And it is what goes on behind the scenes that we can't all talk about. We try to as much as we can here at BC AdventureSmart. We try to go into that finer detail, but I love the focus that you played on that responsibility of the hiker who shares, which so many of us do. If it's a summit or a paddle or a overnight camp, we love to share, but there is more to it, and there's so much behind the scenes. So thanks for going into that. I had a question before. Hopefully some of the audience does. You're welcome to throw your questions in the question field for those of you who are watching. But I know you go out with others, and I do too. Can you share a little bit about group dynamics and how that's worked, either really positively for you, or maybe not so much, because I know sometimes it depends on experiences in the group, fitness, did they have breakfast, did they have the skills, like how does group dynamics, how has it worked for you?
Yeah, that is definitely a really tough thing that gets refined over the years, with people's interests and things like that shifting too. Usually I try to keep a core group of people that where we know each other really well and our skill levels are, at least quasi on par. But every once in a while, and of course, like pre-pandemic, I used to hike a lot with strangers. Like a part of my platform with Hikes Near Vancouver is a hiking group, and there's like 10,000 members or something like that, where people just connect with strangers, and that's much more difficult. That's much more has inherent risk, I think. But the thing that I think is most important to take away from hiking and group dynamics is that you have to, if you're going to be hiking with other people, you have to be understanding that the weakest link of your group is the most important, and they have to be supported. I've seen and heard so many awful stories about, people like being not quite capable for what they've taken on, and that person gets left behind or something like that, and that's just like, that's not cool. Like it's not safe. It's also just not a good person thing to do. And so I think that when you're going to hike in a group, the most important thing is understanding that you are in a group. You're not there by yourself with other people. And so you each have to take care of each other as much as you're responsible for yourself. It's the right thing to do to take care of each other.
It is, and no matter the size of that group, right? We get asked a lot about solo adventures. We almost every week when we do a webinar, which we do every Thursday night, people ask about, so what would you suggest we do? And I like to hike alone. I like to paddle alone. We always encourage the best practices not to be alone. And so those group dynamics come into play for us before you even hit the trail, right? Or before you hit your kayak or your paddleboard, whatever your choice is. You mentioned a little bit about essentials, and then hopefully we've got some questions from the audience, and if not, we'll move on to Jarrett, and then maybe some people will start to loosen up and ask a few questions. But you listed some essentials, some season and sport specific essentials. You had your Avi gear in your pack, and talked about your training. What additional pieces do you bring, let's say for summer hiking? Because we know we all have the list that is kind of our foundation, and we always talk about adding seasonal and sport specific. And I always encourage people to think about their personal essentials, if it's medication, favorite chocolate, whatever your thing is that gets you through that. Do you have anything that's essential for you that you bring?
Yeah. So water for me, I'm just always naturally dehydrated, but especially in the summertime, it's the biggest concern that I find typically with me and everybody else. Like a lot of the people, I'm sure Search and Rescue will attest, like the people on the trails who have issues are like having cramps because they're dehydrated. And so not only is it, to bring sufficient water, but for me, I always bring, like I have one of those Catstein like squeezy water bottles with a filter in it. So if there is any water source, I can, filter it easily. I always in my first aid kit have tablets and drops as well, which I hate using, but they're, in case of emergency. I have tons of like different electrolyte things. I have like salt packets, electrolytes. I have what else? Like what's it called? Cordyceps, like different like energy drinks and things that are that help with hydration essentially, and energy, because I find that that's like the biggest issue with people. And so that's my biggest thing, and something I try to push a lot too is people think like, oh, to bring all this stuff is going to take up so much space and weight, and it doesn't. Like my bag's always really small, but I have a million different things. It's just these like tiny itty bitty like salt packets or whatever, and medication, first aid kits that you buy from Mac or wherever, like total garbage. Like they're like the absolute base, like what you need, but you need to put so much stuff in there, like more band-aids, you need more, what are those things called, like tensor bandages, like big pieces of gauze, like lots of medication. Like I put lots of allergy pills for, if myself or other people have allergic reactions to things. Like there's so much. Like I pretty much have used my gear for other people like a billion times over compared to how much I've used it for myself. And that's something to consider too, is that like when you're out there, you need to like help other people sometimes, especially if you're in remote locations and there's nobody else to help those other people. You know, like I can't tell you the amount of time I've like bandaged up people or given them electrolytes or whatever, giving them an extra headlamp or something to keep warm. You know, like it's yeah, it's really important to know what you need and what you would need in the case of like the worst case scenario, and make sure you have it. Like in winter, I always have those grabber warmer things because I get so cold and there's no way, you know, I have like a bivy and a million blankets and like, you know, snap heaters and like my jet boil and like a million different fire starters and, you know, and still they only, you know, take up this much space. But yeah, being prepared is super important.
Awesome. Thank
It
you
is,
so much,
and as
Oh, sorry,
ahead.
Sandra. Yeah, we have a few questions from our audience. Sylvana is asking a great question. How much water do you calculate to bring for the day? 1 liter per 2 hours or something?
It totally depends on, for me anyway, it depends on the season and then how long you're going to be out, of course. So researching trips, I think, is the most important for this, because you can, you know, if you look at a topographical map, you can see where there's like streams and rivers and things like that, where there's possibilities of filling up water if you're going to be hiking in snowy areas. Like I'm the same. I'm just like you. Like I don't want to carry extra weight that I don't have to, especially when I'm doing a super hard hike. So, you know, my typical is I'll bring 3 liters of water, 2 to 3 liters of water. And then I also have like the flavored things that I can add to the gross water that I pick up in whatever random like pond I will stumble upon if I need it. And I just make sure that I always have that water filter for additional water, and making sure that I know where water sources are. So, you know, being able to see accurate maps. So even if it's not on your trail, if you have to like hike out for, you know, a kilometer to get to that lake or whatever, if there's no running water, of course, moving water, of course. But yeah, I usually say like for a half day, like no matter what I'm doing, I'll only bring max 3 liters of water. But I have ways of getting more water is basically the thing. Like if I'm going out for just a 2-hour short little thing, I'll bring, you know, a liter or two. I don't have a prescribed thing. I have 2 different water reservoir, like one's 1.5 liters and for like trail running and stuff, and then another one's 3 liters, and then I'll bring like an extra Nalgene or something. So it just depends, but the more the better, of course. But I think the take home is just making sure that you know where to get more water and ways of filtering it.
Awesome. Thanks for that answer. And we have another great question here from Stephanie. Stephanie's asking, could you reiterate what percentage weight your pack should be relatively to your body weight? And she says also, 2 of my items that I've had to use that are not on the essentials list are feminine hygiene pants for head wounds and other big bleeds, and hot shots for when people go into shock, even in the summer. So good tips there. And Joanne also added, you know, bring spare contacts or glasses if you wear them as well, just in case you know, something happens to them. So yeah, but just about the pack weight.
Yeah, so again, I'm not an expert anything. This is just my own personal experience. But if I'm going on a day hike, my pack is, no matter what, if it's like 2 hours or 10 hours, I pretty much have the same thing except for, you know, some additional food. But my pack's usually around 15 pounds, I would say, give or take. If I'm doing an overnight trip, like the longest overnight trip I've taken was what's that called? The Sunshine Coast Trail. I did it for like 8 days, 9 days, 8 days. And even then, my overnight pack was only 40 pounds. So it's just about preparing. And I mean, obviously I hike a lot and have done it for many years. So I've been blessed with the opportunity to be able to get like super lightweight gear and knowing how to pack smartly. But I think it's a matter of personal preference, right? Like trial and error. So, you know, packing the lightest weight gear possible, but making sure that you have everything that you need. It doesn't really matter what the weight is, I would say. So, but like I personally, I hate carrying lots of weight too. So all my backpacks are like ultra lightweight backpacks, and then I have all ultra lightweight gear to the greatest extent possible.
That's great. Thank you so much, Christine. That wraps up all the questions for this round. If anybody has any more questions, feel free to send them over to info@adventuresmartbc.ca, and we will happily follow up when Christine has time and get you back an answer. Again, thank you so much, Christine, for your time, and I'll let Sandra introduce our next presenter.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. That was awesome. And enjoy the rest of your evening. We really appreciate your time. I was just checking out Christine's Instagram before I came back on. She has an excellent post right now about navigation. So that's so exciting that she puts up these incredible pictures, and then she goes into that finer detail. So she is definitely adventure smart to us, and really showcases what we can all do, I think, as we go out there and share some more. Thanks again, Christine. And nice post, by the way. I'll just about to put a little like on that one. As we move on to our second guest, I wanted to share some information about Jarrett. Jarrett is with Talon Helicopters, and for over the past 14 years, Jarrett's career has taken him on quite an amazing journey, to say the least, from flying over narwhal and icebergs in the Arctic in 2012 to spending weeks straight in thick smoke, working with the wildfire departments in BC's largest ever recorded wildfire in 2017. He began working for Talon, and if you live on the North Shore anywhere, you may see Jarrett way up there. And so he started working for Talon in 2013 and now holds the position of chief pilot. And at Talon, they conduct a wide variety of services, from firefighting to tourism. And Jarrett's mentioned his most favorite field of work is the work he does with search and rescue. Welcome, Jarrett, and it's good to have you aboard.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, so my, excuse me, my kind of topic I would like to cover today is giving you my perspective of being out on search and rescue on the calls that don't go so quick and easy. You'll see on the news quite often or on social media, helicopter came in and hoisted out the injured party and they save the day kind of thing, which does happen frequently, but we also have calls where it doesn't go quick and easy. So Christine gave you a lot more of the preparation side, and then I'll dive into kind of something has gone wrong, you have called for help. Yes, quite often it will be a helicopter in the terrain around the North Shore Mountains or the sea to sky area. We don't have road access up to top of many of the mountains, so helicopters are the go-to choice. It's quicker, it's faster, but we cannot always get there. So a few photos here. On the left, that is trying to fly up Lynn Valley on the North Shore. I'm maybe a quarter mile past the last row of houses, and it's just a white wall of cloud. You can see the trees just disappearing into the cloud. I can't remember that exact call, but that was with North Shore Rescue, and there was someone missing up, last known up Lynn Valley. We're not like a big airline. The airline planes, they fly on these fixed highways in the sky. They can fly in the clouds because they're on this set path to and from one airport to the next. There is no magical highway in the air when you're that close to the hills up in the mountains. So if the clouds are in our way, we cannot go. We need to be able to see the ground. We need to be able to see the trees. We need to be able to see power lines, gondolas, all that sort of stuff. So kind of my key there is, you know, you do call for help when you need help. Of course you should, but don't always expect the helicopter to show up 5 minutes later. We do have difficulties. Sometimes you will be waiting for the ground team to make it in, and whether it be a more serious injury, a stretcher carry out of the woods can happen, and it does happen, and it takes a long time. So part of the essentials is pack enough equipment, be prepared for the long haul. Sometimes we're not in and out in a hurry. Another one there, this was from last summer, that photo on the right, that's smoke from wildfires. I'm I'm trying to take a guess here, but I think I'm roughly over top of the Lions looking east, and that would be like Crown Mountain, Seymour Mountains, Judge Howie in that way in the background. So sometimes we can't go up to the top of the mountains because of clouds. Sometimes the top's nice and clear and we can't get down to the valley bottom because of things like valley smoke or valley fog. Again, we're stuck due to weather. That could be fog, smoke, icing conditions. Any of that sort of stuff is what's making our day a little bit more difficult and slowing down the rescues. We could jump over to the next slide if you don't mind. Here we go. So here's a takeaway. When we're out searching for people, I would say these days we do more rescues than we do search and rescues. With cell service, spot devices, we're quite often very aware of where the injured parties or lost parties are. We have a pretty good idea based on coordinates or descriptions if you have cell service. So quite often it's more of a rescue, but we do need to find you. Even if we have a coordinate, it's going to get us to the general area. And then, for example, that photo on the left of the snowy hillside, that was 2 winters ago, Port Alberni. We flew across the strait to go help them out. A paraglider had crashed into the side of the hill, and he's in the middle of that photo, hiding behind a white parachute in white snow. We had coordinates. We were told where he was because the local helicopter had already found him. We came over with the longline team to extract him off the hill. That other helicopter had left, so we just had coordinates, which gets us very close to the correct spot, but it took us a long time to find him. Just hiding behind a white parachute in the white snow. Didn't stand up and wave, didn't strip off his coat because he was wearing a brighter shirt underneath the dark coat. Yeah, it's shocking how many times the helicopter's hovering 50 feet away from the coordinate and we can't find the people we're looking for because they're scared of the helicopter noise and they hide under a tree or just sit still expecting that we're staring right at them. So some great things we can do. We were out last week up near Brunswick Mountain, Mount Brunswick, Lions Bay, flew in for an injured party, and one of the bystanders there had a bright red shirt on. He took his shirt off and waved it like a flag, and we saw him from a mile away on our way in. So bingo, right away, we found him. That is what we like to see. Another one, we're now approved for night search and rescue. So when we're flying at night, we're using night vision goggles. There's a video here if we can get the video to go. This is a training demonstration and it's showing how effective a small little headlamp is. Half the people in the video have headlamps, half the people in the video are literally just turning on the cell phone flashlight. But can we get the video? Here we go. Kind of loud helicopter noise. I think my audio is back. So the flashing lights there, cell phone lights and headlamps, like a hiking headlamp. They are bright at night. They work well during the day if you're in the trees, but honestly, if we do come down to looking for you at night, just turn your light on. Whatever light you have, we will see it from miles away, whereas if you sit there with your light off, it's going to take us quite a while to find you. That's Dog Mountain, Mount Seymour, and you could see the ski hill lights in the background of that video as well. Not on the still shot there, but when the video, I don't know if you notice the big bright lights in the background, that was the ski hill, and that wasn't hikers. It was on the foreground on that snowy ledge there was the hikers. So again, like hey, if you've called 911 or a friend has called for help and you're there with them, if you hear a helicopter nearby, just start doing whatever you can. Shake the trees if you're in deep canopy. You can wave your jacket. You can turn on your light. Don't expect we see you until you know for sure that we actually see you. And like you'll see us. The rescue crews, they'll open a window or open a door and give you a big wave and let you know we see you and all that sort of stuff. One more there. There we go. Here's a key takeaway from dealing with calls over the years. If you think you're in trouble, if it's come down to it, call 911. How many hikers have gone out hiking? They try to make one phone call to their friend to say, hey, I think I'm lost, but I'm not sure, but I have 3% battery left. And then 5 hours later, 911 gets a phone call from that friend and says, my friend was hiking. He said he might have been lost, but I don't know where he was. So if you are in trouble, phone 911. There's multiple reasons why. The dispatchers will take as much information. They're trained on how to do that. It's not as commonly known as I wish it was, but if you phone 911, it doesn't matter if you're with TELUS, Rogers, Fido. The 911 system's going to hunt for any cell tower out there. So even if your phone says it does not have service, you can try 911. And if it's hitting a tower that doesn't belong to your network, it'll get through. That is not going to happen when you phone your friends or anyone else. Don't phone Talon Helicopters. Don't phone Squamish Search and Rescue or North Shore Rescue. Phone 911. They make the right call on launching helicopters, boats, ground crews. They call for extra resources from out of town if extra resources are required. And then they have the ability to pull coordinates off of your phone if there's a half decent signal as well. And that's a huge benefit to us as well. Like I said, most of our calls these days are rescues. The actual search, the multi-day search still happens. It's not as common, but those are the calls we dread when you're just needle in a haystack. You're looking for someone in behind Crown Mountain, but you're back of your head, you're kind of thinking they might be a whole valley over. I have no idea, but they told their friends that they wanted to try Crown Mountain this weekend, and that's the only info we have. So yeah, if we can get a coordinate off a cell phone through the emergency dispatch system, huge help. It's my job to help people. I do other flights as well. Search and rescue flying is a big portion of it. We want to help people. We don't want to go do the needle in the haystack search. We very much will do that, but we'd rather come help you, take you home to your family, and then I can come home to my family as well. That about wraps up what I've got to say.
Excellent, Jarrett. Thank you so much for your time. We have some excellent questions coming in from our audience members.
Sure.
Kelsey is wondering how effective glow sticks are at helping you guys locate people.
Glow sticks are good. Lights are better. Yeah, there's a long answer here, but I'll keep it short. We fly with night vision goggles at night. That's when a glow stick would be effective. The glow stick's not doing anything during the day. So at night, if we are in your general area and you had glow sticks and you didn't have a flashlight, glow sticks are great. Flashlights are better. The glow stick we're probably going to see with direct visual, like if we're looking right at it, whereas a flashlight, if you're underneath the trees, the light kind of bounces off the different branches and leaves and makes its way up through the canopies a lot easier. So glow sticks are good. We do use them as a SAR tool. We can lay out glow sticks and it helps kind of mark landing areas. If it's a spot we're going back and forth to multiple times, we can land at night in the middle of nowhere, but if we're going back to the same spot to move crews 5 times, we can chuck glow sticks and it lightens it up a bit. So yeah, they do work. Lights are better. And if you have the ability to make a small fire, like a tiny, tiny little fire, just big enough to roast a marshmallow, we're going to see that from quite a distance away if it were dark out.
Excellent. This is another question from Nicholas, and he says, "Hi Jarrett, what do you think of using laser pointers to get the helicopter's attention? I am aware that it can blind the pilots. However, it seems like a sure way to get attention. Would love to hear your expert's take on it. Cheers."
Again, use a light. If you shine a light, we're going to see a light. Laser pointers aren't going to do anything during the day, so again, we're falling back to night. If you shine a light at night, when we're flying on night vision goggles, we will see you. You glow like a Christmas tree. I have been hit by green lasers while flying over the city at night, and people who, I won't use any specific words, but people who shine lights at helicopters and planes because they're mad at the noise that the helicopter is making over their city. It's scary. I've never gotten a laser beam in my eye directly, but it lit up the cabin of the helicopter, and I kind of turned my head the other way, turned the helicopter. We train for it. We train how to fly away from lasers without physically looking at them. So I would say even if you're in the woods and you want to get my attention, use a flashlight. If the laser is the only thing you have, turn it on and point it at the ground or point it at a tree. Do not point it up at the helicopter. That's a firm no.
Excellent. And one more about lights. Are flashing lights better than just a stationary light? And this question is from Lorraine.
Flashing lights are great. The other thing you can do is, I don't know, hold on. Here's your light. Just pop your hand back and forth. If you have a solid light, that is also awesome. What we have found when we're flying on night vision goggles is those little reflective markers that mark the trails the whole way. We see those glowing on goggles, but they're a very still light. They don't change, they don't flicker, they're solid. So the flashing really gets our attention. Or if you pulse your hand back and forth across a solid light, if you don't have a flashing option, then it really gets our attention as something out of the ordinary. So flashing is good.
Great. And just actually, someone else has just tacked on one more thing about lights. Some headlights have a red SOS light. In trouble, does white or red give a stronger signal to the helicopter?
Color doesn't matter. White is typically brighter. If you're going to look up the lumens, like the brightness of that light, usually the whites are the brightest. Color doesn't matter. What does affect us is LED lights. Certain LED lights are a wavelength of light that the goggles don't see. So LED lights, again, we're trained on how to find them and avoid them. So things like, I'm getting distracted here, but things like cell phone towers and that, they have lights on them. It's mandatory, they have to be marked with lights. Some of those lights are LEDs. You can see them with your naked eye, and with the night vision goggles, you cannot see them at all. So we scan, we look through the goggles, then we turn our head and we kind of look around the goggles, and then we look through the goggles, then we look around them. If I'm being picky, LED lights are not as good as your standard, more traditional bulb, but we can find either or because, like I said, we search with our naked eye and we search through the goggles as well. Color, we've seen both, and I don't have a preference over color. Just bright is good.
Excellent. So we have two questions regarding Recco. So Chris is asking if NSR has access to Recco. They definitely do. Chris, yep. They have a big, huge unit that they will mount on the front of the helicopter and fly over and send out that signal. So Terry is saying, how about the Recco backpack tag? How are they to assist in your finding the location of a subject in the day or the night?
Recco's great. We have a helicopter detector, a helicopter Recco detector. I believe, well, we were the first in Canada, the second in North America to receive it, but they're slowly shipping out more and more. If there's not 3 in the province, I think a third one is on its way. You know, we're based in Vancouver. The Recco is based in North Vancouver. We can use it mutual aid anywhere in the province if we needed to. Just the further away, the longer it takes. The Reccos are awesome. The only downfall to the Recco is if you don't have a reflector, it's not going to do much. But if you had a reflector, and if you had that in your trip plan, like it's an immediate launch of the Recco if you were missing, because that's how effective it is. We hang the Recco under the helicopter, we can hang it on the hoist or the long line, we can fly it day, we can fly it at night, and we can search. If you've got a reflector, we can now search for you at 60 miles an hour and cover a lot of terrain. Whereas if you don't have a Recco, we kind of go low and slow, crawling along looking for you. The Recco, essentially, you just fly along the hillside in a grid in the general area where you think the lost person is. If we fly over you, you get a signal and a boop, 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 and then it goes silent. We've used it on multiple calls. We've had a few successes with it. We have never yet had a trip plan, like we've never had a missing person with a trip plan that says, I have a Recco. That would be the ideal scenario. What we're doing is we're launching on missing persons, not knowing whether they had Recco reflectors or not. And when we get to kind of plan A, plan B, plan C, usually around plan B, it's let's give the Recco a try. If we have a general area, if they have a reflector, we will find them. Different from the handheld Recco. The handheld Recco is much more fine tuning, finding someone in a smaller area, but the heli detector has been great so far. The trick is getting reflectors. They don't take batteries, they don't run out of power. They're not, you can get a standalone reflector and just stuff it in your pocket. And a lot of gear these days is coming with Reccos, so I would very much recommend them. Again, I'll backpedal there a bit. They don't replace your avalanche beacons, but they are a summer and winter tool that I would put in your essentials kit, a Recco reflector. They were originally designed for avalanche purposes, but they're now in mountain bike helmets. They're in kayaking gear. If you're lost, we can find you with the heli detector.
Yeah, Recco's great. I just actually upgraded my day hiking pack from MEC, and MEC branded packs have a Recco reflector in them. I got a nice purple and green pack, so it's nice and bright, so I can be seen from the sky, so I'm not blending into the forest. I have another excellent question here from Randy. Is there anything specific a party can do to prepare the area when you come into hoist or longline?
Usually we're hoisting or longlining because the terrain isn't good enough for landing. But what you can do to be helpful is, you know, quite often if you've had an injured friend, you'll take your jacket and lay it over them, or maybe a blanket, or if it was your campsite, your tents might still be up. The helicopter downwash causes a lot of things to fly around. If you could clean up the site, pick up loose clothing, pick up loose tents. If you had cell service and you were talking to the rescue team, which happens a lot these days, you know, you're on the phone to them, hey, we're on the south peak of First Pump on Seymour and my friend's broken leg, we need help. You know, a quick little description that there's a nasty snag that's just uphill from us that looks like it could fall over any minute. If you want to give that description, that's just bonus information for us. We do our reconnaissance anyways to try to find all that. That's why you know, when we show up overhead, we're not throwing people down the hoist immediately. We take a couple minutes to recce the site to find the hazards, our flight paths, etc. But if you throw that bonus information at the SAR team, no one's ever going to get mad at you for sharing that extra bit. But in general, just loose items would be my biggest point there. Clean up the loose gear, blankets, those, what do you call them? The tinfoil space blankets, those things fly in the wind like crazy. Chuck them in a backpack or put some rocks on them, something like that.
Great, thank you so much. So I've got one more question from Kelsey, and I think you went into this already in your presentation. She's wondering how PLBs work and are they worth it? And I can say they are. Having a PLB helps the helicopter pilots immensely because it gives them a location, and it gives the SAR teams a location of where you are pretty quickly. So I'll let Jarrett go into that a little bit more. And then I believe that will be our last question for the evening.
Sure, yeah, like a spot beacon, that's kind of the idea we're going for here.
Yeah, I believe personal locator beacon, so Spot, Garmin, InReach, Zoleo, all of those, all different, methods of getting it out.
I'll give you a kind of a pro and a con quickly here. I'll try, but one of the great things about a Spot is you press the SOS button, it will wait until it has a good satellite signal and a solid coordinate before sending out that distress call. That might take 10 seconds, that might take 2 minutes, but it'll wait just a couple of minutes to make sure it has a valid source of its location before it sends that information out. So that's great. When we get a spot beacon, no, it's not going to put you 2 feet away from that point every time, but it always tends to get us in the correct general area. And if you press SOS, help's going to get launched right away. It doesn't matter if it's you're lost or your friend's hurt or you're hurt, they'll just start sending help. One issue we did have with someone who wanted to be found was he would turn on his spot, press send, turn it off to save batteries. And then an hour later, turn it on, press send, turn it off. It's kind of like the emergency beacon in the aircraft. Once you activate them, leave the thing on because it sits there and acquires the best signal it can before it sends. It doesn't send the moment you touch that SOS button. So if you turn it on, press send, turn it off, it's not going to send anything. Just they're great. We really like getting a coordinate from them. The fancier ones now you can text information with, which is even better. But yeah, I would say that's money well spent on a personal beacon. Absolutely. I don't let my dad go out in the woods without him because he does multi-day trips by himself. But big trip plan, the Spot sends us a friendly message every now and again. He's got the text friendly one and works great.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jarrett, again, for your time and your expertise this evening. We really appreciate you joining us again, and Sandra should be here shortly.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jarrett. That was great. That was really, really interesting, and it's nice to hear it from you. I know we share a lot of versions of that in our Survive Outside program that we deliver quite a bit, but it's nice to hear it from you and your perspective. Obviously, it makes a difference. It's really good. I will ask you a quick question, and hopefully it's a one-word answer, and then we'll move on to our third guest. What's the best color for you to see out there? I'm colorblind and I see colors, but I'm curious for you. What's the one that stands out the most? We talk about all sorts, but what works best?
I think I'd be in trouble if I didn't say yellow because of company branding, but bright red, bright orange, bright yellow. Yeah, I know there's trends to buy a white ski suit, but you're just going to disappear in the snow. Any of those bright colors. Honestly, the rescue teams, some of them have an orange hood. It's the team color on the jacket, but with an orange hood. And when we're hoisting them or long lining them and you look down, that orange, that kind of neon orange just glows. Summer or winter, that color is great. So yeah, any of the brights, but that orange really works well.
Nice. Thank you. So not white, which is perfect. I didn't think so anyway. Great. Well, thanks so much, Jarrett. That was great. We really appreciate it. All of us who see you fly over us. Some of us know you're up there, and we appreciate all those people that you bring home to safe and sound, back to their families, back to their friends, and provide closure for others. So we really appreciate what you do, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
As we move on to our third speaker, I wanted to introduce a friend, BJ Shute. He's 27 years with BC Ambulance. 11 years as paramedic chief, 10 years with Squamish Search and Rescue in the Sea to Sky Corridor, SR manager and VP, vice president. He's a backcountry enthusiast, mountain biker, avid skier, and he's seen his fair share of search and rescue incidents. There's no question in that region. From lost hikers and injured mountain bikers to disoriented backcountry skiers and snowmobilers needing help in treacherous terrain. So, you know, I'm proud to call BJ my friend, and I'm really grateful that he's here tonight. He's dedicated his career to emergency response, emergency management in one of the busiest regions for search and rescue in BC and in Canada. So welcome, BJ, good to see you. And can't wait to hear what you've got to say here tonight.
Thanks for having us, Sandra. Squamish Stars, really proud to have been asked and to join here. And I just wanted to say thanks to the previous presenters, Christine and Jarrett as well. It was very informative, and I certainly like hearing the common messages and I was listening to the questions, and it's hard not to jump in and answer them because I know from experience that Jarrett and I are on the same page and that are going to say exactly the same thing. And I'm waiting for him to say something about a two-way texting SOS beacon, and there it was. The two-way beacons work great. So good job, everybody. I was asked to present our perspective on hiker safety and what are some of the things that people can do in order to be prepared. And I do like the fact that AdventureSmart has gone away from just saying be prepared to actually giving some preparation messages, because prepared means something different to each person. And so I dug around and I found some pictures. This helicopter is red. It's not yellow. Sorry, Jarrett, but it depicts a young lady there in purple. And this was a call. And what you're not seeing in this picture is the time of day, and it's about now, where we only had about 20 minutes of flying time. And Jarrett talked about how difficult and how long the nights can be if we aren't able to fly. This incident here was up at an area called Plbs Lake, which is a couple-hour hike just south of Squamish there by the gondola. It takes you up over top to a lake, and some people became stranded in the snow. And as you can see, wearing jeans and a jacket and a hoodie with I'm not even sure what we call it. There's some sort of backpack type thing there that basically was empty. The only thing really that her and her friend, who didn't have a backpack, took was a 500 milliliter bottle of water. But you can see the footwear. They ran into snow, they got wet, they got stuck, they slid down the snow. They couldn't really do anything about it. It doesn't do a good job of showing how wet and how cold they were, but certainly those jeans didn't help. And the one thing that they didn't have was, we talked about a lot tonight, was any sort of light source, whether that be a flashlight or preferably a headlamp with some extra batteries, that they would have been able to make their way out of the trail had they had to hike. And what you see in the foreground, one is our pilot, the other was a SAR member with about a 45 or 60 liter pack. And what's inside that pack obviously is some first aid gear, a little bit of rope gear to help with a hand line to assist these people. But mostly what's in there is extra down jackets, toques, lights, some food and water for the people that were lost, so that we can get them warm and get them comfortable before walking them out. And it would probably be probably with them, it would have been about a 4-hour, maybe even a 5-hour hike out had we not been able to fly them out. In this case, we actually landed downslope from them on a logging road. They did walk out for about half an hour to a logging road, and we just made it back to Squamish Airport before we had to land for the night due to the flight rules. Can we swap the slide there? So again, this person in the foreground here, we gave them the headlamp that they have, and what again you don't see is the poor choice in footwear, clothing, and there's no backpack whatsoever here, so no gear. Down below them is one of our rescue volunteers, and this was some lost people on a trail that goes up to the gondola. So again, it was about in the daytime it would be maybe a 2-hour, hour-and-a-half hike out with somebody that's inexperienced. You can see the ropes that they set up there to get them down. I think this took about 4.5 or 5 hours to get these people out. So I think that the listeners or viewers here are seeing a common or hearing a common thread. I hope that footwear, clothing choices, and lights are something that we heard from Christine, from Jarrett, and that you're going to hear repeatedly from myself. Those are the things that really are going to make a difference and make your hiking adventure, your day adventure, that's become a night adventure, something that's very tolerable and likely something that you can handle on your own and not need to activate search and rescue through the 911 system. It's really, experience comes into play for sure in practice, but it's really, really important that people are prepared and prepared to the point of self-rescue, and having something simple like a puffy coat or a vest, a toque, a buff maybe instead of a toque, some proper footwear, and a light and a little bit of food and water, just how far that can go, even if it's just to keep your spirits high and keep you warm through the night if we're not able to access you, either by hiking up or flying until the next day, or sometimes even 2 or 3 days later, in our case here in Squamish due to our terrain. Let's see what's on the next slide there. So yeah, some common themes we've heard. We heard from Jarrett, and Squamish SAR is very similar. We don't do as many calls as our friends in the North Shore, but certainly we do over 100, about 130 per year. And most of those calls are for rescues for people that have, sustained some sort of trauma, whether it's mountain biking or hiking or skiing or climbing or parasailing or some of the wing sports that we do here in Squamish. But of the people who are lost or missing, there are some common themes. And one of the big common themes we hear is that I didn't expect to get lost. So I didn't bring a jacket, a light, I didn't wear good footwear because I thought I was only going to be going for a 20-minute walk, or I didn't have, my friend didn't bring a headlamp because I had one. And these are very, very common themes. And I'll go so far as to say somewhat frustrating to hear over and over again, because the literature and the work that AdventureSmart and in Squamish our prevention teams do is hammering these messages home and everything. So a little bit of research and a little bit of time, like what we heard Christine say, is to read the book and to look at a map and practice your mapping and practice putting on your jacket in the dark and practice turning the light on and on. Does it have a lock switch? Does it have a flash mode? Does it have red? Does it have green? And so fumbling around in the dark probably shouldn't be the first time that we're trying to turn that headlamp on. Some other things we heard is that we didn't expect for it to get so dark and be so cold. And that's something that we try and hammer home to our volunteers, and certainly to the people that we're talking to in the community, is that we really want people to start to think wet, cold, and dark. And what is it that you can do to alleviate the wet, the cold, and the dark? Do you have a tarp or a rain jacket? Do you have a puffy jacket or a fleece jacket or a vest? And do you have some sort of light source? And again, Jarrett talked about headlamps versus things like glow sticks. You can navigate obviously with the glow stick. I know that there's people that do it and train to do it, but it's really not the best. And we use them a lot in the night operations for marking trails, for example, or marking routes that we've searched, or throwing them into the river to see how the current goes, like that. We don't use them for navigational purposes in the sense of using them as a light. And, that we didn't expect to need a light or food or water and warmth. And I think if you just take a few minutes before your adventure and you think, what if it gets dark? What will I do? What if it gets cold? What will I do? And what if it gets wet? What can I do to help myself? And then your hike goes from an emergency to somewhat of an unplanned camping adventure and a really fun story to take home to your family and friends. So I think there's another slide. Again, some tips. We talked about researching your hike, and this is something that we're trying to bring forward a little bit more, is to spend some time. So if you are looking at, Christine's website, for example, and you find a hike up here, I mentioned Peckgill Lake, doing a Google search of Peckgill Lake and reading the comments, then you might find something within the last couple of weeks where the snow line is or the weather, and checking the sunset and where do you park and what does the trail look like and how long does it take and those sorts of things. And as well as practicing with online type maps or app software. So Gaia, for example, or My Maps, or any of the free maps are great. They're amazing. You simply turn it on and follow the blue or the red or the green dot around on the trail. And it's really, really a great navigation tool. Google Maps, however, Google Maps is great if you're going for a bike ride in the city or you're trying to find your kids' daycare in downtown Vancouver or Surrey. It's really, really amazing tool for an urban adventure, but it's not a very good tool for a backcountry or front country adventure. And we certainly don't recommend Google Maps as a mapping source here in Squamish. And I would go so far as to say any of the trails in our province here. One of the things that we do notice, and I think anybody who's been to any of the outdoor stores, we have an Escape Route here and a Valhalla Pure that are amazing stores, and is that gear is flying off the shelves. The outdoors have exploded, whether that be hiking or paddling or biking or whatever the sport is that you're going to take part in. But when we rescue people, they have a first aid kit. Christine mentioned that how they're not the best. I tend to agree with her on that, but they're still sealed. The stove is still in the cardboard box. It's really, really, really important that people take some time and practice with this emergency gear. And I liken it to either your first aid kit in your car or the fire extinguisher under your seat. And the first time you pull that fire extinguisher out from underneath your sink shouldn't be when your stove is on fire or your house is on fire. It really should be something that is muscle memory and something that you're able to do quite easily. And the same thing goes with your gear. Sandra, I think, talked about the essentials and the gear that you should have. And I think it's important. We talked about what to carry in Christine's presentation and how much water and that sort of thing. And I think that just comes with some experience. When you first start out, you might take, a lot more gear than you normally would and different gear. So, every time you go out, check that list, make a list. What did I use? What didn't I use? And more importantly, what did I wish that I had? And if you get into a situation where you're hiking here in Squamish, say it's up the Chief, and you get somewhere, I wish I had an extra granola bar, or I wish I had better footwear. That's the time where you can start customizing your kit, and the time that you can start looking at the different types of gear that you need for the different types of activities that you take. And it really is a very simple thing that can be done after each hike or the next night after a hike, or even better with your hiking partners, so that you guys can have a little debrief. Where did you go? Did you go where you thought you were going to be? How does our gear work? What didn't work? What can we do better next time? What kind of food did we like? We didn't like this type of food, etc. How did the stove light? Was it snow on the ground? Did we have lots of water? All those are questions that you probably want to have and have a debrief, in the comfort of your own home, and not on the side of a snowy mountain somewhere where you're wishing you had brought the lighter because you didn't know your stove didn't come with an igniter or something along those lines. I don't know if there's another slide. I can't remember what else there's. Oh yeah, how to help you. This is something that we feel is important. The first thing to remember, and we talked about calling 911, which is the second bulletin there, but calling 911 early. And by calling 911 or pushing the SOS button, which is really just a longer version of 911, that gets you a guaranteed and coordinated response by all the emergency services. So for us here in Squamish, for example, you might get a response from the Squamish Fire Department, BC Ambulance, the RCMP, and Squamish Search and Rescue. We all work together at a common goal to bring the person back safely, or to treat them in the backcountry and evacuate them as most efficient as we possibly can. And it's really important, the idea of being charged for your rescue should not ever hinder you calling 911. There isn't a recognized search and rescue team anywhere in the province. I'll go so far as saying anywhere in Canada that would ever ask for donations or money up front, during, or after a rescue. All of the search and rescue teams in British Columbia are volunteers. We do, however, rely on donations. So after a rescue, for example, if somebody is feeling generous and wants to make a donation to the team to, help further equipment costs or training costs or fuel costs, those sorts of things, those are gladly accepted, but no team would ever send you a bill or ask you to pay upfront for any of our rescue services. Are 100% free, and I would stand and argue against anybody who would advocate differently. We know that we have a robust and dedicated, strong search and rescue service here in the province. It's also really important that you stay put. We did a call here 2 or 3 days ago for a young lad who fell over his handlebars and broke his arm. And his friends and the people that came by found him, called 911, gave us the location. It was perfect. We talked to him. We could verify the location, and we started our teams out. The fire department started out. The ambulance started out, and then some people came along and they were very helpful. I don't mean to sound otherwise, but they walked him out a different trail. And when they got to the roadway, the ambulance wasn't there. And that's because they started moving and didn't tell anybody. So once that call to 911 is made, and if you do request search and rescue, most teams I think operate the same way, but whether it's a SAR manager like myself or another search and rescue member will call you back and make contact with you, provided you're in cell phone range, and we'll discuss that rescue beforehand. So we'll let you know how long it's going to be, any advice we can give you to stay warm, or to move to a slightly better location, or to treat somebody's injuries, or any of that sort of stuff. And so once that rescue starts, it's very important that you go along and do the things that are being asked of you by that rescue volunteer, because they are giving you the best advice, and they're giving you the advice that on the backside that they're coordinating with their team to make sure that rescue comes to you. The other thing that we're asking people again is to have enough gear, and we talked about knowing how to use it to stay warm. Staying warm, and it doesn't matter to me if it's June 1st or August 1st. If I go this morning, when I went for a hike up the Chief, I had a puffy jacket and a clean toque with me so that I could put on something dry and something warm when I got to the top, because I knew I was going to try and take in the view and have a sandwich and be up there, after exerting myself for an hour and being quite sweaty and quite cold and standing around in the wind that I'd be cold otherwise. So, it doesn't take a lot to, like I said earlier, to keep your adventure going, and to keep, what could be a disaster to a fun story that you're going to tell your friends. So, I'm not sure if there's, I don't think there's any more slides. I'm not sure if there's any other, if there's any questions in the queue, or if there's anything, Sandra, that I missed that you wanted me to cover as well. I'm happy to stay on as long as people like.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, PJ. Yeah, we definitely have some questions in the queue. Krista is asking,
I can answer them.
I'm interested in learning about orienteering, but not sure where to start. Any recommendations? Thanks.
I'm not an orienteer myself, so I can't help you, but I do have some friends that do it. I don't know what the app are, but I know that there's some apps, and if you do a quick Google search, you'll find it quite quickly. And if by orienteering you mean either just learning how to use a map and compass, or some navigation tools, or my suggestion would be to take it a step further and join either an online geocache type group, or one of those apps where people do geocaching. I think that's a great way, especially I do it with my nieces and nephews, where we'll go on to these sites and get the GPS coordinates, and then I let them navigate to the stump, and they can dig up it's usually a box with some sort of trinket in there, and you sign the book or follow the directions in the box, and you rebury it or re-put it back to where it was, and then you go on to the next one. And it's actually quite fun, and it's a very good skill to use, and an easy way and a fun way to use that skill. So I hope that answers the question. If not, feel free to retype something in there, and I'll try and narrow it down for you.
Thanks a lot. We have a question from Barb. She says, which online maps do you recommend?
I knew this question was going to happen, and I was trying to figure out a way to not answer it because I didn't want to get in trouble with all the other mapping people. But there's a couple of ones that I particularly like. I like using a map called Gaia. I believe it's Giai, something like that. You can find that, as well as Trailforks. Trailforks is for here in Squamish because there are so many mountain bike trails, and I suspect in the North Shore. I grew up in the North Shore. I know that there's a lot of mountain bike trails there too. Trailforks is great, and they've bridged off into doing other activities outside of mountain biking. So a lot of the common hiking trails are on there. And one of the features that I really like about Trailforks, and I think it's absolutely brilliant that the creators put this in here, and they did work with some of us in the search and rescue world to do so, is that in the menu function of Trailforks, when you open the app in the top left corner of the menu, there's a button there that says emergency info, and it's a big red button. If you push that, it allows you to share your location either by email or text, and we'll oftentimes use this for, say, mountain bike injuries, and have that person text us the location, and then the Trailforks app actually goes and digs into your phone and retrieves your GPS data off that, and it texts it to the rescuer. And what I really like about that is that it's giving us a fairly accurate location, but when I open it on my side, it's opening in the Trailforks app or on the computer in Trailforks, and it plots that person's location onto the correct trail. So we're all looking at and talking about the same thing, and there's no transcription errors. Most teams, if not all teams in the province, certainly all the Sea to Sky teams and the North Shore teams can actually send out a text message and retrieve that GPS data off your phone. It's not live tracking like you would see on some of the TV shows. It just gives us a one-time text message with the GPS location, which is also super useful. But then we have to go and transcribe it onto our map. So if we are in an area where we know Trailforks is inundated with trails, Trailforks will be our go-to for that 100%.
Awesome. And this is a great question from Melissa. Tips for convincing people who don't think a full kit is necessary for a 7K hike. I'm committed to it, but my partner often wants to leave their extra layers behind when it's a warm summer evening.
Sorry, I missed part of the question because my dog was.
That's okay.
Sure.
I'll reread that. No worries.
Something about how to convince people to carry the right essentials, I think, is the.
So tips for convincing people who don't think a full kit is necessary for a 7K hike.
Oh yeah, like a 7K hike is a long ways to go. So I guess my response would be obviously it's going to depend on the elevation, but for example, here some of our hikes are about a 2-hour hike straight up a hill on a 7K hike. So if it took you 2.5 hours, 3 hours to do that hike, you have to think it's going to take us 2 hours to do that hike. Plus we're carrying gear. Plus we have to page the team out. Plus we have to find you. Plus we have to do a whole bunch of other stuff. So, I think it's important to take this stuff with you, regardless of the length of hike. I go, on short hikes here all the time, and I have sort of two kind of go-to systems that I use for each one. I have it's a larger size, but a running vest that I have enough stuff in there where I can put some communications, a cell phone charger, a little bit of food, water, a vest or a puffy, and a toque, and that's what I use if I'm going to go on like a shorter, say, couple hour 7K hike. But if I'm going to do anything farther than that, then I take a full backpack that has a little bit more kit stuffed inside there for sure. The other thing, I was thinking about this morning as well, is that I may get some pushback from some other people, but depending on your knowledge, your skill level, and where you're going. So, I have a fairly intimate knowledge of the Squamish Trail. So, I don't necessarily carry a paper map as a backup. I don't ever look at, I shouldn't say ever, but I very rarely look at maps when I'm out recreating, just because I have that sort of in-depth knowledge of where I'm going. So it can make a little bit of a difference. But I would say certainly, especially when you're starting out and heading out, that you need to have that little bit of gear, just in case, that not even the worst thing happens, but you twist your ankle and you're stuck lined in a puddle, or it's pouring rain, or the other side is baking hot. With our our body temperatures being, what is it, 36.5 or 36 whatever for our body temperatures, but it's 8 degrees at night, so that ground that you're laying on is 8 degrees, and it's sucking all that heat out of you. So you want to be able to be warm, and you want to be able to be comfortable until help arrives. So I don't know about how you actually convince that. In this case, I think this was a couple, other than the bottom line is everybody needs to go out there and be prepared, and be prepared to the point of self-rescue every time you go out 100%.
That's great. So you kind of touched on this at the end of this last answer, but Kat's asking, do you recommend physical maps at all? And if so, any recommendations? She says they say they don't really know how to use a compass very well. So I learned in avalanche when I took my avalanche training. I took my Abby level 1 and got a crash course in map and compass reading, and have been sort of playing with it ever since. So.
And I think that's, the key. And I go back to my comments about the fire extinguisher. If you don't know how to use it, then really why is it under your kitchen sink? And so, carrying a paper map is, yes, there are great paper maps. I don't know all of them, but a lot of the places like Garibaldi Park here in Squamish, they have a map. I think Joffrey has one as well that's specific to that area, and that's a very good map, and it's going to give you the detail that you need to find your way out of, certainly on the main trails. But taking that time to learn how to use it and learn how to use the compass is just as important as having if not more important than having the tool. There's even great apps on your phone for a compass, but again, as much as we rely on our phones, we should also ensure that we have an extra battery and a charger with us, so that we can have the ability to charge that phone back up, and bear in mind that technology can fail, and also that cold temperatures have they can wreak havoc on a battery life as well. So we want to make sure that we're covered. I do take a paper map, for example, when I go ski touring up here in Garibaldi Park. It just sits in my pack. It doesn't take up any space. So we do use them, and we do recommend them for sure.
Excellent. Well, that is the last question, and I'm cognizant of everyone's time. It's 8:28, so we've done quite well. So I just want to thank you, BJ, for joining us this evening and giving us your expertise. It was really great. I'm going to let Sandra sign off this evening, and then I'll be ending the webinar.
Thanks, Natasha. Thanks, BJ. It was awesome. It's nice to hear your voice again and hear what you have to share. It's, you're on the ground, you do this all the time. And have been doing it for a really long time. So I'm really glad that whoever joined us tonight from the public could learn from you and Jarrett and Christine, and get some different perspectives. That was the whole idea behind this. And I have one little question for you, but I think I know the answer. But personally, what do you, of course I have a question. Do you think it's a plus or a negative, a pro or a con, that we have such easy access to incredible terrain? I know my thoughts, but as a first responder, as a paramedic, who kind of eats, breathes, and sleeps this, is that easy access is it a good thing?
Yeah, it's a bit of a loaded question. So thanks for that. It is a good thing, because on one hand, I'm happy that people are getting out and adventuring. I am a little bit concerned about the lack of awareness on some of the more easy trails here in Squamish, such as Mirren Park, for example. And just there seems to be a little bit of an attitude of not taking that 5, 10, 15 minutes just to step back and look at a map, and having the ability to call 911, where search and rescue has in our minds become the fourth emergency service here in the province, and it's very easy to rely on search and rescue. But you know, we are here. We're happy to help. We joined this team. We are volunteers, and we do this because we enjoy it, and we do it because we want to bring our skills and our knowledge to assisting people that are in trouble. But on the same token, I think there needs to be an onus on people to take some of that responsibility back on themselves and ensure that they are going out there prepared. It is a blessing and a curse in the same sentence, and it's, you know, we do have amazing terrain that's great. It's easy to get to. I go right out of my back door and I can be mountain biking in less than 2 minutes. You know, I couldn't ask for anything more. But I also understand that I have a responsibility to my community and to the greater community to do so within the training and within the abilities that I have, and to be reliant on myself first and search and rescue last. That the search and rescue should be our last line of defense. It shouldn't be the go-to because you know, we didn't bring a jacket or we didn't bring a granola bar or a bottle of water. It's very, very simple. I think we heard it over and over again from, you know, myself and Jarrett and Natasha, as well as you, Sandra, through your work in AdventureSmart, that it's pretty easy, especially in the summertime, to fend off cold, wet, and hungry. So I think we can tighten that down quite a bit. So I'd be interested what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I started off the thing tonight is saying that I think it gives people a huge false sense of security when we have that easy access, and it's people are fooled by it when it's so easy to get to. They don't automatically go into that preparedness mode and make that plan and leave it with a trusted contact. And they don't always. Some do. I'm not dissing everybody. Some don't though. And at times it's not always a fault, because I like to describe that user group as really, they're unaware. And many people are unaware, and that's why we get to do this, and that's why we brought you on tonight and the others, and that's why we do this as a full-time job, because there's so many people that have that access, especially on the South Coast, especially down here in the Southwest, and they are often fooled by that easy access. So
we are, you know, and we look at you know, the terrain that we have here in the Sea to Sky region and the North Shore, where you know, where I grew up, and it's again, it's, you know, within you know, a 15-minute run or a 5-minute mountain bike ride, I can, the amount of terrain that we can travel and the trail networks that we have, they're just so advanced, and they can be so confusing to people that we just really we do want people to just take that time to you know, to be prepared. We were chatting just before we started here. I said when I joined Squamish SAR in 2010 or 2011 or whatever it was, we did 52 calls a year, and now we're up to 130. And you know, it's not that that people are making, you know, twice as many bad decisions. There's just so many more people that are out there and recreating. And the one thing that I know for certain of almost 30 years in emergency services, that when we put more people into an area, more bad things are going to happen, and that's what we're there to do. So I'm really glad that our, you know, the province has taken on a key role in funding the AdventureSmart program, and I wish that there was a way that we could drive people to those simple messages, because it's just so simple that you know, I almost think we don't need to do these presentations, but clearly that we do, because we need to drive that message home to these people, and you know, we need to start early, which is what we do here in Squamish. We do presentations in the schools, and you know, you don't graduate high school in Squamish without having an AdventureSmart presentation. So we're really fortunate to have that buy-in by our school district and our community, and it makes a big difference, you know, with people. And so it's a really important message, and I hope that the people took something away from that. So thank you for having me.
yeah, an excellent point, and I'll conclude on 2 points. And just to let everybody know that, and I think you knew this when you registered, for everyone who's listening, that 50% of all hiking, search and rescue occur in the Southwest. And that's why we wanted to kick off our summer series with the Southwest tonight. And then Thursday and next Tuesday and Thursday, we rotate to other regions. But this one is the most impacted, actually. And that's why we wanted to invite you and have you share with us. And And there are other opportunities to learn. We have our weekly webinars, and a great example is we have outdoor educators who are out there, some who are not with search and rescue, some who are. BJ's fortunate enough to have two there that are so busy with outdoor education. Christine and Cheryl have been incredible, and they've delivered more AdventureSmart presentations in the school system in Squamish than anyone elsewhere in BC. So they can be commended, and I like to thank them on behalf of myself again. And we have over 500 outdoor educators in BC that we've trained. So we're really fortunate to have a support system. We have SAR Response, BJ, and the other 2,499 volunteers. And then we have, and that was good, wasn't it? It was good math, easy math, thank goodness. And then we have outdoor educators who also do the outdoor education piece. You know, we do this as a full-time job, Natasha and I and my crew here. And then we have 500 volunteers who wanted to join us and share it as well. So we have opportunities for that too. But thanks, BJ. It was a pleasure, as always.
Thank you, as always. I enjoyed my time.
Thanks. And thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. I hope you have a great evening. If you wanted to join and check more out with what we're doing, this Thursday, we have another special event. We've got the Interior and Kootenays region with some special guests from Kimberley, Search and Rescue, Wild Safe BC, just as two of those special guests. And then coming up next week, we have Vancouver Island and Northern BC with wonderful guests there as well. And that will be really exciting to kick off the summer together provincially, really about hiking safety, because it is our main cause of search and rescue. And we know that by now that by you getting informed, you can make a difference and help us. So remember to trip plan, train, take those essentials, use the AdventureSmart Trip Plan app, ask us if there's anything else we can help you with, and have an excellent, safe summer ahead. Thanks for your support. Good night.